Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. I'm pleased to be here with Education and Childcare Minister Dimitrios Nicolaides to share some information on the education funding for the coming fiscal year. He will also introduce our two guests. I don't think it is a surprise to anyone that our education system has faced challenges in recent years. Today, we are taking steps to address some of those challenges and provide much-needed support to educators. They told us loud and clear that the status quo was not sustainable, and we listened. Tomorrow, in the Legislative Assembly, our government will table the 2026 provincial budget. This year's budget will again include the largest ever investment in Alberta's education system, coming in at $10 billion in operational funding. This represents a more than 7% increase compared to last year. I don't think I'm giving too much away by saying that Alberta, like other jurisdictions in Canada and around the world, has been facing challenges ranging from trade disruptions to supply chain issues to volatile commodities markets. This year, we're dealing with a significant deficit resulting from the twin pressures of low energy prices and near record high population growth. Our government remains firmly committed to fiscal responsibility, and this deficit has forced us to make some tough decisions. But investing in the next generation of Albertans remains the utmost priority for our government. As a resource province, we learned long ago that when prices are low, the key is to limit our spending increases and to focus our spending where it matters most, on education, health, and other infrastructure needed to uphold our world-class living standards and support our thriving economy. That's exactly what we've been doing. Our rapidly growing population has required us to expand Alberta's school system significantly, and last year's budget included the largest education investments, again, in provincial history. Much of that funding was earmarked for building and renovating schools across the province and speeding up the construction process so that we can accommodate a school-aged population that's grown at an unprecedented rate. The School Construction Accelerator Program we created in September of 2024 has delivered impressive results. 38 projects have been fast-tracked, with 4 projects accelerated twice for a total of 42 accelerations, some serious time savings. We've also shaved 9.5 months off many projects and accelerated one by more than a year. There are now over 120 school projects that are underway, and more will be announced in the coming days. But we recognize it will take more than new facilities to get our school system resourced and ready to absorb all of the recent growth. It's clear that class sizes and complexity are major pressures, and we've committed $143 million to start addressing those specific issues. But the work doesn't stop there. Alberta has one of the best school systems in the entire world, and we are determined to ensure that it has what it needs to keep it that way. This funding will be enough to hire 1,600 teachers and 800 support staff in the coming years. Getting Alberta's world-class school system fully caught up to our recent population growth will be a multi-year effort. It will require more staff, new and expanded infrastructure, and innovative approaches like the complexity teams that we're deploying into schools with the highest needs. This means that, of course, that it will require more resources this year and for years to come. Our government will continue to increase education funding over each of the next 3 years, funding that will enable us to hire thousands of teachers, educational assistants, as well as support staff. When it comes to right-sizing Alberta's education system, the scale of the challenge is clear. In the past 5 years, we've had 600,000 people move to Alberta, including 80,000 additional students. We haven't experienced anything like this in generations, and that means we have to consider it in historical time. In a few decades, I have no doubt that this will come to be recognized as a transformational period for our province. But the good news is that we've already made significant progress in overcoming the challenges of the here and now. And if the funding through Budget 2026 passes, it's going to help us get all of the way there. Thank you, and I'd like to invite Minister Dimitrios Nicolaides to share a few more details about how the operational funding will be allocated.
Well, thank you, Premier, and thank you to everyone for joining me here today. As the Premier mentioned, Alberta is growing faster than any other province, and that growth is showing up, of course, very clearly in so many of our classrooms. Alberta is experiencing more students, more complexity, and rising costs, and this means we must continue to invest in education. That is exactly what Budget 2026 will do. I'm pleased to provide a preview of how Budget 26 will support students, teachers, and schools across the province. Albertans can count on Budget 26 to include a record investment in education to ensure that Alberta students receive the supports that they need in their schools. Budget 26 will make a historic investment into our education system. These investments will focus on 3 priorities: supporting classroom staff, strengthening supports for students who need it most, and ensuring we address classroom complexity. If passed, Budget 26 will provide a record $10.8 billion for our education system. That is a $722 million increase, or a 7% increase from last year. This record level investment will help hire more staff and ensure students have access to more supports. And that's just the start. Over the next 3 years, education funding will reach $11.5 billion by 2028-29, helping to hire more than 5,000 teachers, educational assistants, and support staff. We also know our teachers and classrooms are facing more pressure than ever before. The data we collected on Alberta's classrooms showed that we not only have more students in our schools than ever before, but more students who need specialized learning supports. Budget 26 will invest $355 million to address classroom complexity. $55 million will be directed to the existing Classroom Complexity Grant, and $300 million will be invested after consultation with school boards. This means that more than $1.8 billion will go to support students with complex learning needs and help those who need additional assistance. Additionally, to help our youngest students build strong foundations, we are increasing our investment by 60% by providing $20 million to support students in reading and math support. Rates for program unit funding, moderate language delay, and English as additional language will all increase by approximately 6%. The Specialized Learner Support Grant, Refugee Student Grant, First Nation, Métis and Inuit Grant, and Student Technology Grant will increase by 3%. Additionally, there will be a 3% increase to the Francophone Equivalency Grant, which is on top of the 25% increase we announced last year. Budget 26 also increases school transportation funding by 3% to ensure that over 340,000 students make it to school safely each day. Budget 26 will also keep our Schools Now program strong, with more schools coming for Calgary, Edmonton, and other communities. And I look forward to sharing more details about those specific schools in the coming days. These investments respond to teacher concerns, and I'm confident they will ensure our education system remains world-class. Thank you. It's now my pleasure to invite Sandra Palazzo, Chair of Edmonton Catholic Schools, to share her remarks.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you, Premier Smith and Minister Nicolaides, for the opportunity to speak today. I also wish to acknowledge Elk Island Board Chair Colleen Holloway-Chuck and to all who are gathered here today. Edmonton Catholic School welcomes the Government of Alberta's announcement for operational funding for school divisions in that they will be increasing in the upcoming budget. This investment reflects a shared commitment to what matters most: student success and educational excellence across our province. Operational funding is critical to support the day-to-day work of teaching and learning. It pays for the people, the resources and services students rely on. And any increases that recognizes the true cost of delivering education is truly significant. Today's announcement is a positive step that signals enrollment pressures and rising costs are being acknowledged. At first glance, several of the areas of advocacy from our Board of Trustees have dollars attached to them in Budget 26. Issues such as class size and complexity, supporting students with specialized learning needs, a focus on literacy and numeracy, and new curriculum resources and implementation are all areas that have been addressed in this pre-budget announcement. We look forward to receiving our funding profile in the upcoming weeks to better understand how this investment in strengthening and supporting the education system in the province will impact our division. Our board remains committed to responsible stewardship of public resources by using every dollar wisely and prioritizing teaching and learning. We recognize that classroom complexity and class sizes remain matters of provincial focus, and will continue to engage with the province for sustainable, predictable funding that supports every learner and the dedicated professionals who serve them. We also recognize that an increase in operational funding is an investment in our children and in the future of our province, and that strong schools today prepare students to contribute meaningfully to their communities and to Alberta's continued prosperity. We value our partnership with the province and look forward to our continued collaboration to ensure Alberta's education system grows in strength and responsiveness to the needs of students, families, and the staff who serve them. Thank you once again. And at this time, I welcome Colleen Holloway-Chuck, Board Chair of Elk Island Public. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank Premier Smith and Minister Nicolaides for the invitation to participate today. I'm honored to be here on behalf of Elk Island Public Schools and would also like to acknowledge Edmonton Catholic Board Chair Sandra Palazzo. Today's announcements focus on some of the most critical areas for education in Alberta. We are thankful for the recognition and work around classroom complexity, the additional investment in the foundation skills of literacy and numeracy, as well as specialized supports. The investment to support teachers with professional learning and classroom resources as we continue to roll out the new curriculum is paramount and will go a long way in supporting our staff. Our students' days begin and end with getting them to and from school. The investment in supporting safe and reliable transportation will help ensure our students arrive at school and then home again safely in our urban-rural division. Every child deserves the best education we can provide so that they can grow, learn, and thrive within their schools and communities. We have heard from parents and caregivers, students and staff about the challenges and increasing classroom complexity and the need for more specialized programming and staffing. The Alberta government's commitment to provide funding for complexity teams and additional classroom staff will better equip public school divisions to address barriers for equitable learning and ultimately smoothing the path for more students. In addition, the investment in literacy and numeracy, particularly when focused on early learners, pays dividends throughout a child's education and their life after graduation. We know that children with strong early literacy skills are more likely to become proficient readers by grade 3, and that milestone is a key indicator for future academic success and senior high graduation. The strategies we employ at Elk Island Public Schools have resulted in positive results for our students, and the additional resources provided and being directed to key initiatives and programs will help ensure our students achieve their goals and can contribute to the economic and social well-being of our communities and our province, which has unlimited potential. Today's students are Alberta's future, and this ongoing investment in education means our province will continue to excel and compete on the world stage. Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers, to Minister and Premier. We'll now go into our media Q&A. We'll start off with questions here on the phone in the room before making our way to the phones. A reminder of one question, one follow-up, and to state your name and outlet before asking your question. We'll start off with Connor.
Hey, Connor Hawk, CTV News. This question is for the Premier. I wanted to ask you about just if you were able to give a breakdown of the numbers that show the effect that all the newcomers to the province are having on the education system, and are they tracked, and if so, how is your government doing that?
Well, I can tell you, and Dimitrios probably is going to be able to answer this. At the request of various student or school stakeholders, they asked us to do a class size assessment, and we decided to go quite a bit deeper than we ever had before, rather than just looking at the overall pupil-teacher ratio. We drilled down to each classroom. So we got the reports from 108,000 classrooms, of which we narrowed it down to the ones that are in the more academic grades. Like, it's not unusual to have a band class, for instance, that might have 60 kids in it. So we narrowed it down to look at some of the full-day programs and the academic programs. And so we did a really deep dive on 89,000 classrooms. You can go online and look at the details around that. But that was allowed us to see the net increase in students of 80,000. From 2022. It also allowed us to see that the English language learning population had gone from around 47,000 to over 100,000. And Minister Nicolaides was also able to go one step further and look at the number of children of guest workers that were also in our system, and I'll let him talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. As the Premier noted, we were able to take a closer look at some of those numbers. And for example, specifically around English as an additional language or students who are identified as requiring more assistance there, we saw over the course of the past few years, 2 to 3 years, approximately a 150% increase in the number of students who require English as an additional language who are students of or children of temporary foreign workers. We categorize them between temporary workers, permanent residents, and citizens. So we have seen explosive growth in more students of temporary foreign workers into our school system, and they're requiring, of course, a lot more English language support and other supports as well.
Follow up.
Yeah, I do have one. Based on what we heard yesterday from Minister Scow, there is going to be legislation coming to deal with immigration in the province, and it is also the subject of a number of the referendum questions that are going to be posed this fall. One of them is asking whether immigrants should be denied services. Would that also mean that they wouldn't have to pay income tax?
Well, I can tell you the way our programs normally work is that when someone's coming as a guest worker, the quid pro quo is that they get to have a well-paying job, we collect taxes, and then at some future point they return home. The way most countries in the world work is that they don't provide access to social programs until somebody's made an investment in being a permanent resident to a country, whether they're a citizen or whether they are a permanent resident, because then they're making a long-term commitment to be a long-term taxpayer. Otherwise, guest workers really should be coming with the plan to pay for themselves, to pay for their own kids' education, to pay for their own health care, until such time as they make that commitment to be a long-term permanent taxpayer. That is not unusual. We just had a clarification from the federal government that they expect guest workers to have their own private insurance. They already do this in Ontario. They don't make it automatic that families of temporary foreign workers get their health care paid for. We already do this in a couple of our programs for PDD and AISH and others, and we're just going to be asking Albertans whether that is a reasonable standard that does exist in other countries around the world.
Awesome. Can I see a show of hands again? Yeah, we'll go back to CBC, and then we'll come to Will.
I guess for the Premier or the Minister. So are you changing or augmenting the funding formula for education? And if not, I guess what's actually changing?
Sure. There won't be any further changes to the funding formula. You may recall, of course, last budget cycle we moved away from the 3-year weighted moving average to a 2-year adjusted model. That model will continue to stay the same. However, we are providing, as we mentioned today, over a 7% increase in operating funding to our school boards and increasing many of the rates that school boards use to provide funding and support to students, in addition to increasing funding for complexity. So it's a significant and historic level of investment that our school divisions will realize.
And then as a follow-up, you mentioned 1,600 teachers to be hired over the next couple of years. Are those part of the 3,000 teachers that were already promised in Budget 2025, or is that addition?
1,600 is what we anticipate we'll be able to hire this year through the investment that Budget 26 is making. Over the course of 3 years, we are forecasting approximately 5,000 additional teachers. So the 1,600 is the figure for this current year.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll go to Will, and then we'll go to Jack.
This is for the minister as well, actually. You guys mentioned part of the challenge is the level of English language learners in the school system. Has there been a thought of maybe increasing the number of immersion programs in Alberta school systems, kind of meet these English language learners where they're at?
There's definitely some consideration of that, and we're looking at a variety of different possibilities. We are as well exploring what more there is that we can do through the use of technological solutions or artificial intelligence to help to support students acquire English language proficiency. School divisions already received dedicated and targeted funding to help support English language learners, and we are increasing those rates through Budget 26 as well.
I'll just add, one of the additional complexities, and I'm sure you see this in Edmonton Catholic, is there's 140 different language groups that are represented in our school system. And so you might be able to offer that kind of support where you've got concentrated language groups, and we do. I mean, we've got Mandarin school programs, we've got Spanish school programs, we've got Ukrainian school programs, but to be able to accommodate all of the different language learning needs, it may require some different solutions, and as the minister mentioned, some technology solutions.
And then second question is these new school projects that are going to be announced in coming weeks. Can you give us an idea, are these mainly focused in Calgary and Edmonton, or are they kind of spread out throughout the province?
Well, you'll have to wait and see for us to make those announcements in the coming days. However, we're taking an evidence-based approach. We're looking at where population increase and utilization rates are creating pressure and providing for more schools in those locations. So stay tuned and we'll be able to provide more details.
Thank you. We'll go to Jack and then we'll come to global.
For either the Premier or the Minister, so last year's education increase was 4.5%. I'm not sure what population plus inflation is for this budget. I'm sure I'll find out tomorrow. But a 7% increase, do you kind of have some hopes that that might help like mend the relationship with teachers, considering it's a bigger increase than last year and just at the size of the increase as well? Like, are you hoping this might accomplish that?
I think, as the Premier mentioned, I think our investment today and through Budget 26, of course, being tabled tomorrow, demonstrates that we're listening very carefully, but more importantly, we're taking teacher concerns and parent concerns very seriously and acting on those concerns. So I do firmly believe it can be a strong demonstration of our intent to listen and respond effectively to the challenges that we're seeing.
And then for the Premier, I just wanted to clarify something you said on Monday's press conference. This is the quote. You said, "I've always been very clear about this. Our budget needed $74 oil in order to balance, and that's why we've been able to run not only balanced budgets but surplus budgets for the last few years." Did you mean that like at the amount that Alberta needs to spend on services every year requires $74 oil like every year, or were you only referring to the 25-26 budget needing $74 oil to balance?
Well, you have to remember, I mean, you inherit a lot of decisions that have been made by your predecessor when you come into this position. And we've had successive governments make certain decisions that put us in a position where we've got quite a large reliance on resource revenues. It was a choice that was made because we wanted to keep our tax environment low. There have been reductions in personal income taxes, corporate income taxes, healthcare premiums. We don't have a sales tax. We don't have a payroll tax. We don't have a capital tax. And so when you have a certain amount of spending that you have to do based on your population, and we spend on average about $15,000 per person in our province, which is a little bit above Ontario, but it's below most of the other provinces. Every time a new person comes, it adds dollars. So just doing the math on that, 600,000 new people, 15,000 each on average costs $9 billion. And when your revenues go from 25 billion for resource revenue to 15 billion less than that, it creates a problem. You've got an increasing pressure on your expenses and a decreasing revenue source. And so when we did the calculation on that, we knew that we needed $74 WTI, especially with the differential that we had at that time to balance the budget. We've been fortunate in a number of years when prices spike, that allows us to get windfall surpluses, which we use to pay down $15 billion worth of debt and double our Heritage Savings Trust Fund. We've got $15 billion more in our Heritage Savings Trust Fund. So our net debt position is actually $30 billion better. But we need to sustain that approach so that the Heritage Savings Trust Fund can become a shock absorber. If it was $250 billion, then you'd be able to rely on it to help smooth out some of these revenue shortfalls. But we just didn't have that strategy before we came in. And we have to stick with that strategy so that it's available to us. In the meantime, there aren't a lot of easy ways to be able to get the budget back in balance. We believe that Albertans are taxed enough. A lot of those tax dollars go to the federal government, so maybe more of those dollars should stay here in our province to cover our programs. That's one of the conversations we're having federally. But we also know that we're going to see more production come on stream. We're hearing all kinds of stories about South Bow using the old Keystone assets in partnership with the U.S. We're hearing about expansions to the Enbridge Main Line. We're hearing about the TMX line being expanded. New production will help bring in new revenues. But the long term is, of course, making sure that we've got a brand new pipeline, 1 million barrels a day, so that can also provide that support for the revenues and the programs that matter to people. But yeah, we've been accustomed to having a higher amount of resource revenues in order to be able to balance the budget. And with the additional pressures we have of unprecedented population growth, it's put us in a position where we had to make some tough choices. But what we heard from Albertans is that they don't want dramatic cuts to the programs that matter to them. In fact, there's some reinvestment that we have to do to support the population. And it just means that we've got to work overtime on making sure that MOU gets implemented and some of those projects get completed, and then just stick with the strategy of the Heritage Fund over the long term.
Awesome. Can I just get a last show of hands for those still a question in the room? Yes. So come here to global, then to you in the back.
Sarah Ryan, Global News. Premier, staying on provincial revenues, what can municipalities expect in tomorrow's budget when it comes to infrastructure funding, considering that's so tied to provincial revenue?
There are three big areas of government finance, maybe four, I should say. I mean, one of them, of course, is healthcare, which is why we made the announcement yesterday, so that doctors knew that they were going to be supported, even as we have some of these disruptions in our revenue. Today is to make sure the education system knows that they're going to be supported. And we've committed to the community that helps provide our capital that we don't want to have dramatic wild swings in the amount that we invest each year, because that actually costs us more in the long run. If we don't get in the queue with some of our big projects, and then we have a windfall and it comes through and we have to pay a premium to get companies willing to bid on our projects, that doesn't help anyone. So we want to be able to create stability in those three areas. So you'll see stability tomorrow on that as well.
And then for my follow-up, I just want to ask in regards to this budget increase, is this a direct result of the teachers going on strike and the groundswell of support that you saw outside of this building from the public? Like, Minister, you said you're listening. Is this a result of the strike, this increase in funding?
I would say it's I think they're tied, but I think that we had started the work on the Complexity and Aggression Task Force because the minister had identified a year before that was becoming an area of growing concern. And we hadn't gone through and done a complexity review of each of our classrooms. So I'm very pleased that the teachers in the schools and the school boards participated in that in such great numbers. I think we got 96% of the data back, which is I think a message that they really wanted to tell us what was going on in their classroom. And it's why we've had to tailor our results. So you see that, yes, we're going to increase operational funding, but the complexity classrooms is something that we want to try. We rolled out 476 of these complexity teams, and the minister has also got other dedicated funding streams that we're going to work with our Education Cabinet Committee to see if there's better ways to provide that kind of targeted support. So we learned that the school boards need some help. I mean, this is an unprecedented increase, and it's too much for one school board, especially the smaller ones, to manage on their own. There's English language learning is cross-departmental. It has different departments that fund some of that. Some of the behavioral and complexity issues are funded out of a different department, assisted living and social services as well as children's services. Some of the mental health issues are funded out of a different department. But I've got all those ministers at the table so that we can see how we can provide seamless support. So that, I think, was the biggest insight, is yes, the schools need more support, but we also need to be able to intervene in a way that does that cross-ministry work. And I think the ministers built both of those into the plan.
Awesome. We'll go to the back, then we'll come to Sean, and then we should have time for one more question after that.
Sarah Shea-Blosser, Taproot. Can you speak a little bit more on how teachers were consulted while building this budget?
Yeah, I would be happy to. Of course, we had probably the largest expression of teacher voices just a few months back, and so we were able to listen carefully to some of those concerns and take some additional steps. We did proceed with gathering the most complex level and detailed amount of data and information that we've ever had in the province, respecting class size, classroom composition, and other classroom challenges. So that information, which was largely collected directly by teachers in their classrooms, helped to inform the work. In addition, of course, the Class Size and Complexity Cabinet Committee has been meeting with representatives from the Alberta Teachers Association and other teachers and principals directly on that body. So teacher views and opinions have, of course, been an integral part of the development of this budget.
Awesome.
And can you speak a little bit more to how this new budget is going to affect Edmonton Public Schools?
Sure. Well, the individual profiles will be released in the coming weeks, and we'll be able to show in those profiles exactly the dollar amount that each individual school division will be receiving. But of course, as one of the largest school divisions in the province, it'll see a significant share of the new funding that's being provided. But the actual dollar amounts and more details, be happy to provide in a few weeks when those funding profiles are ready.
Thank you. We have time for two more. We're going to go to Sean here, and then we'll go to the phones for our last question.
Hi, Sean Amato with City News. Minister, one of the main criticisms that you face from people is that Alberta has the lowest per student funding in Canada. How do you respond to that, and does this investment that you're making today nudge Alberta up that list a little bit?
There's no question today's investment moves us significantly up in terms of our overall investment. And, we're going to continue to look at what our education system needs and continue to provide funding. I do have some concerns and objections over how some of that data is sliced and analyzed. Even Statistics Canada has said, it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison. So I think we have to be careful drawing some of those parallels, but we're going to continue to provide the level of investment that's expected and make sure, most importantly, that we're getting strong results, which I know Alberta students continue to rank amongst the very best, not just nationally, but internationally as well.
Premier, there are rumors swirling online, and granted, not all rumors are true, so I wanted to ask you if this is true or not. People are saying that your school book ban or school book restrictions that you put in place for libraries, school libraries, will soon be extended to public libraries as well. Is that happening, and if so, why?
No, there won't be any books removed from school libraries, but we have to understand that there are some libraries that are co-located with elementary schools, even though they're a public library. And so I think that you'll see some guidelines around how to make those books accessible to the older students and make sure that that these graphic images, sexual images, are not available to younger people. So I'll let the minister talk a little bit more about when he releases it. It's actually a different minister, as part of the reason. Dan Williams is our Minister of Municipal Affairs, and so he's going to be able to detail that.
Awesome. Thank you. We have time for one more question. We're going to go to the phones. Operator, could you put through our first caller, please?
Lexi Freehill, CBC. Hi, this question is for Minister Nicolaides. A Cold Lake mother says her 13-year-old autistic son has only been getting a handful of hours in school a week since October due to lack of classroom supports. She said even if an EA was hired and funded tomorrow, getting her son back into his routine will be a serious uphill battle, and that damage has already been done. So what do you say to this mother and other parents like her who are dealing firsthand with the lasting real-life consequences of underfunding for classroom support?
Well, I would say first and foremost that we're listening very carefully, but most importantly, we're taking action to address some of these real concerns. This is a real concern, of course, that this mother is experiencing, and we are working aggressively, as I think we're demonstrating today, and from previous action, to get more supports into the classroom where they're needed the most to help support students such as the one that you mentioned. And so I would say we're listening and we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we're providing more supports to help not just her child, but all others across the province as well.
Awesome. And just to follow up to that, you said during the K-6 complexity team's announcement earlier this month that early intervention is more effective and less costly in the long run. So I'm curious, based on your previous answer and the previous announcement, what specific investments in budget 2026 focus on complexity in grades 7 to 12 and account for students, families, and teachers dealing with issues that may be worse because of a lack of early intervention in previous years?
Sure. So as I mentioned, Budget 26 will provide $355 million to support complexity-related issues and challenges. $55 million of that will go to our Classroom Complexity Grant, and that grant is available to all school divisions to provide, and not just limited to an elementary environment, but for them to provide services that are needed in their school division. In addition, the remaining $300 million will be allocated to school divisions over the coming months once we have an opportunity to gather a little bit more data and have some more in-depth conversations with school boards about how those dollars can make the most impact. In addition, as I mentioned, we're also increasing base rates to many of the grants that are provided to support student well-being, whether that's the Specialized Learner Support Grant, Refugee Grant, English as an Additional Language. So those other funding supports will be in place to help as well.
Can I just add one more thing? Of course. The other part about early intervention is making sure that you identify literacy and numeracy challenges early, and that's another part of the grant stream that the minister has talked about. One of the things that we've been discussing at our Education Complexity Committee is how you can tie that with an individualized program plan. And these new sophisticated models for testing for literacy and numeracy are quite good at identifying exactly what challenges a child is having and understanding. And we can connect that with an individualized learning plan that would be able to be automatically produced to help the teacher and reduce some of the classroom load. So we already have that planned for those up to grade 3, but the most recent conversation we had is, why don't we make that available to students of all background? You can do literacy and numeracy testing at any grade level, especially since we have so many kids who are entering at the older grades, to see whether they're performing at grade level and what they're struggling with. So those are the real practical things that are coming out of our Education Complexity Task Force, why we're developing these dedicated funding streams, and why as a province we're taking the steps to try to get province-wide licenses and access to different programs so that the school boards don't have to bear the burden themselves, and they can then identify the types of programs that will work best for their students. So that's another way in which we're trying to find some novel solutions to do not only early identification of literacy and numeracy, but ongoing identification of where there might be challenges.
Thank you. And that's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.